Alright, welcome to the course Analytics in Learning and Development. The objective of this course is to introduce to you how analytics could be applied in learning and development. My name is Femi Ojomo. So in this course, we'll be looking at or answering the question, what is learning analytics? We'll be looking at the importance of learning analytics, activating learning analytics, types of data reports, challenges and failures of learning analytics, tools for learning analytics, and a case review. So, to the question, what is learning analytics? From LAK 11, which is the first international conference on learning analytics and knowledge in 2011, the definition thus: learning analytics is the measurement, collection, analysis and reporting of data about learners and their context for the purpose of understanding and optimizing learning and the environment in which it occurs. So we'll look at this definition critically. So what it's saying here is that analytics, as far as learning is concerned, is all about the measurement, the collection, the analysis and reporting of data about learners and their context of learning for the purpose of understanding and improving learning and the environment in which it occurs. So what it means is there's an element of learning analytics that takes place before learning itself, during learning, and after learning. So extensively, this is what we'll be looking at in the course of this course. Importance of learning analytics. Why is learning analytics important? Learning analytics helps to attend to some fundamental questions that will help to drive productivity and appropriate allocation of resources. Experience has shown that more often than not, learning is being approached from a reactive perspective or from a reactive viewpoint. We oftentimes are not deliberate in terms of learning, and sometimes we just engage in learning within the corporate space just to fulfill all righteousness, or our people are being sent on training, etc. But when it comes to learning, it is very it's a strategic tool. It's a lever for promoting productivity and performance. So if you don't get learning right, it will be like you preferring a wrong solution to a problem. So when it comes to learning analytics, there are some fundamental questions that it helps us to answer, like what does work entail and when is work said to be properly done? Because before you can deploy a learning or an intervention, as the case will be, it is important for you to first and foremost have an understanding of what work really means and when is work properly done as expected. What are the real competencies and skills required to get the job done properly? So are there skills, are there competencies? Obviously, there will be competencies and skills required to get the job done, because it is when you know about the skills and competencies that you really can tell if indeed there is a gap or there is a shortage in skills and competencies required to get the job done. Now, if you don't have this benchmark already established within your organization, the possibility of you identifying the gaps or even preferring the appropriate learning intervention will be a big challenge. So once this system is built, learning analytics can take an active role by exploring what is expected and what is available. Then the question of what is the level of proficiency required to put competency, skills, and knowledge to good use. So for every level or volume of work, there is a level of competence required. For every complex job, there is a level of skills required. So what is the established level of proficiency as far as competencies and skills is required for a job? What approach will work in ensuring that required competencies are built in the right degree? So when it comes to learning, it's not going to be proper to just think that the best intervention or the intervention to be adopted will be a classroom type of intervention without you understanding or discerning of what approach would work to ensure that competencies are built in the right degree. How do we know that there is an impact on work relationship as a result of the interventions? So to what extent can you really establish that yes, there's been a transfer of knowledge on the job? Where were we before the intervention and where are we now, probably a period after the intervention? What new patterns are impacting and affecting work? So these are the fundamental questions that would help drive productivity and appropriate allocation of resources as far as learning is concerned. So how do you go about activating learning analytics? Right. In activating learning analytics, there are three areas of opportunities for us. There is learning needs analytics. Learning needs analytics is more about what are the areas of need as far as learning is concerned, as far as development is concerned. Now, these areas of need are, will be an outcome of an exercise as to identifying those gaps within the organization. Now, before you can identify gaps or spot gaps, then there is a system already that has been built into the organization to say, okay, these are the requirements as far as skills and competencies, knowledge are required for job to happen or for some task to be delivered. So analytics will help us to compare what we have and what we don't have, and also track patterns as far as people are concerned within the organization. Over the years, we've been preferring solutions, we've been providing interventions. These interventions, have they really impacted? So different things we can look at as far as learning needs analytics. Now, the next aspect of this is learning program analytics. This has got to do with the design, the intervention itself. Now, we've identified an area of need, the gaps, the extent to which we want to close the gap. So in designing the solution, preferring the intervention, what initiatives needs to be activated? And in terms of even rendering or providing this intervention, what would be the best methodology for this intervention? Now, all of this needs to be thought through, and within, metrics also need to be plugged in for the purpose of analytics. Because at the end of the day, you're looking at the design of the for instance, the curriculum, the content, the delivery itself, in-session learning, and all of those things, and many other things that has got to do with the techniques of delivery. The next part is the learner analytics. This speaks directly to the learners, those in which these learning solutions have been targeted to or targeted at. Has learning really taken place? Is there a transfer of learning on the job? Now, so in deciding on all of these things, there are metrics that need to be built into the system so that it will be easy for us to evaluate the learners pre-intervention and post-intervention. At this point, it is far more than, it goes beyond the API sheet where some pager are being shared after learning for you to tick course and training was good, blah blah blah, environment was. So it goes far beyond this. And in building a system that would work, it is important that we make reference to learning evaluation and analytics. And the best reference will be the Kirkpatrick evaluation model and Kaufman's model. Now, Kirkpatrick has got 4 levels, which is reaction, learning, behavior, and results. While Kaufman has also got level 1 to 5. We'll speak to 5 because 5 is just like an addition to Kirkpatrick evaluation. Reaction level 1, designing of learning experience, input and process. how do you go about working on this and building metrics there for the purpose of analytics? Learning itself, delivery and test of learning. This is when learning actually happens. And more often than not, what happens here is that at the point of delivery or at the end of delivery, an API sheet is being issued to all the participants to state their perception about the training or the intervention. So because what you're doing is highly strategic, you've sat down at the point of level 1 to design something and decide on the best methodology for you to ensure that the gap is well closed. So behavior level 3 is the transfer of learning and application on the job. Are people really using this learning? What percentage of people who go through this kind of intervention really gets to impact the workplace and the job? Then level 4 is more about the result, actualization of goals. Do we achieve the right result as far as what we have set out to achieve? And then level 5, which speaks more to Kaufman's model, is the impact on customer. Because at the end of the day, we are not in business for ourselves. We are in business for customers. So whatever intervention we have introduced within the organization, to what extent does it impact the customer? So there needs to be a system that would also help us to gather those data from the customer's perspective. So like I said, beyond the API sheet, learning needs analytics from a needs perspective. What are the needs and how can we build in metrics for the purpose of analytics and tracking? Learning program analytics from a solution and impact perspective. Learner analytics from the learner's perspective. So these are 3 critical areas that you need to really focus on when you want to activate learning analytics. Because at the point of designing, there needs to be a system built in for the purpose of gathering data and being able to carry out analysis, trends, cause and effect, rendering reports from different perspectives. So we look at the types of data reports available to us. So when it comes to types of analytics reports to be rendered, there are 3 distinct reports. There is the descriptive and analytics reporting style, there is predictive analytics, there is prescriptive analytics. Now, let's look at them one after the other. Descriptive analytics is the basic type of analytics you are most likely used to. It's focused on historical data and summarizing into something that is understandable. A good example of a descriptive analytics would be a head count report of people within the organization. Even taking steps to further break it down to demographics is also one of those with gender, etc. Predictive analytics is where descriptive analytics is being used to predict the future. Statistical models and forecasts are used to answer the question of what could happen in the future. So that's all about predictive analytics. While prescriptive analytics is once the future has been predicted, the next question is what can we do about it? So that's what predictive and prescriptive analytics is more about, providing recommendations as to what needs to be done. Now, if you now look at all of these 3 data reporting for analytics, if you bring the 3 of them together, there's something I refer to as a hybrid. So your report should be an hybrid, descriptive in a way, providing a description of the situation, predicting, and also prescribing. So if you look at the cycles, you will see that there are points of intersection. You have descriptive intersecting with predictive. So sometimes you have your report, which is has elements of being descriptive and also predictive, and sometimes you have descriptive and also having element of prescriptive. So by and large, these are the kind of reports that you should have. So when it comes to analytics in learning, it is important that whatever we do with our data as a result of learning intervention or planning for learning interventions or spotting areas of gaps as far as competencies and skills is concerned, we need to look at historicals and identify issues prescribed and also use that for the purpose of improvement within the workplace. So the next thing we need to look at will be the challenges and failures of learning analytics. Right, challenges and failures of learning analytics. Truth be told, learning is one of those areas where data has really not been used for the right purpose. So one of the challenges or failures of learning analytics is the absence of data collection channels. So people hardly tap into the data available for the purpose of learning. The reference point has always been probably during learning, some tests are being administered to always establish, okay, did they understand what was taught? Administering happy sheets to say, okay, how was your perception about the training and etc. So there is need for us to think of means of gathering data as far as learning is concerned. So data collection channels from before learning, during learning, and post learning are very, very important. Collection of wrong data due to wrong prognosis. So situation whereby your research throws out, or you focus on the wrong thing because of your research or fact finding, the likelihood of you coming up with the wrong data, which will become an input, is very high. So get the what and why correctly, and the decisions of what data to track and collect will be decided correctly. So you need to know what and why you need to collect data in the first place. Then the decision on what needs to be tracked will be made possible. Manipulation of data to suit purpose. So from an internal perspective, you find people manipulating data just to say, okay, there was an acceptance of learning, etc. Just because oftentimes learning is now being seen as one of those activities that is deemed necessary. So one of the challenges is the manipulation of data for the purpose of suiting whatever purpose it is. Absence of integrated system for tracking productivity and other workplace essentials and activities. So a lot of things are happening in the workplace that has got to do with either deficiency in skills or competence, or probably wrong interventions and many other things. But because there's no integrated system to help us track all of these things, it makes it very difficult, even at the point of spotting the problem and preferring the right solution. So this is one thing that needs to be looked into. The workplace culture, silo operations and data concealment. Workplace culture is also very critical. You find some places whereby some departments or some section of the business find it difficult to work closely with the others, and whatever it is, whatever pain points they have within the department is hardly being fed to the right channel for the purpose of providing the right intervention. A good example will be a section of the business where it's obvious that some intervention coming from the learning department isn't really working, but because of one reason or the other, the receiver department would not come out to say, okay, these are the challenges, these are the reasons why these things are not working. And because the learning department doesn't also have a system to track indeed if there is a transfer of knowledge and to also match where they were before the intervention and what the situation is after the intervention. So these are areas of concern and challenges. Absence of competence in data analysis and reporting. So where there is absence in the incompetence for analyzing data and reporting findings, then it becomes even difficult to work with the little data being gathered from learning interventions or for planning for learning or for upskilling and equipping talent. So these are the challenges and failures of learning analytics. So what are the tools for learning analytics? So when it comes to tools for learning analytics, quite a lot of options. You can make use of Excel, you can make use of Power BI, and because of quite a lot of learning management solutions out there that comes as software as a service. The back end of these platforms have the capacity to analyze data. But what happens is it is restricted to learning, which is more about the learner's analytics. So it's really not about the other types of analytics, which is learning needs analytics and learning program analytics. So for it to really give you value, you need to have worked extensively on learning needs analytics and learning program analytics. That is when whatever it is that you analyze at the point of learners analytics would make a lot of sense to establish if there is an handshake between learners analytics, the learning program analytics, and the learning needs itself, and also on-the-job feedback as to what is happening on the job. Now, in carrying out your analysis, you want to carry out sometimes trends analysis, correlation analysis, regression, cause and effect. Whatever the case is, what you want to do with your data per time and the extent to which you want to go in telling your stories with your data would guide you in deciding on the choice for a tool to be adopted for learning analytics. Alright, so there's a case before us. Let's quickly read through the statement of problem. Our customer retention figures are falling, and it shows why our revenue is depleting. The organization is also not doing a great job in winning new customers for the company. So that means customers are not being retained and new customers are not coming into the company. We need a solution. The CEO, we need to let go of this pool of staff and hire those who can do the job. HR has been training them and budget on training keeps growing. So what the CEO is saying here is that, come guys, over a period of time, we've been losing our customers. To add to that, we are not even bringing new customers. And the effect also is our training budget keeps growing. HR has kept training people. So what is happening here? So based on our own knowledge and what we've been discussing so far on analytics in learning, how do we intend to tackle this issue? Okay, from the problem stated or shared by the CEO, and a template that has been designed to help us identify what the issues really are, a cost identifier. There is a bit of learning analytics for pre-intervention task. Now, the problem is continual reduction in customer base and poor entry of new customers. Now, to identify what the issue really is, we'll be looking at it from two perspectives, internal and external. And there are a list of questions to guide us as to what we need to track. Now, under internal, we are looking at what is customer retention to us as a company. To the company, this CEO is making reference to what is customer retention to them. What are the different customer touch points? What are the specific jobs playing active roles across the customer touch points? How seamless is the process of serving customers? Staff and customer perspective will be required. So in all of these questions, watch carefully what will happen. What are the critical competencies required across our customer touch points? To what extent are these competencies present in our organization? From the external perspective, questions that we need to also concern ourselves with as far as the statement of problem for this organization are: what alternative products or services are out there? What are the different price points? which competitions market share has grown over the year. So in terms of competition, which among them has seen their market share grown over the year? What are competitions offering, and if it is working? How does the current disposable income of our target market measure up with what it used to be? What priority has taken over spending among our target market? Now, if you listen carefully to all of these questions, you will see that they would point us towards some data that are required for us to be able to answer these questions. So when it comes to the internal perspective, we want to gather data on strategic goals on customer retention. We want to gather data on customer retention, historical to present. How has customer retention been over a period of time? We want to look at our functional process on customer from entry to exit. How do customers come into the business to the point of leaving the business? How customers are won, promises made, what and how promises are delivered, and post-delivery support. Because all of this, by the time you look into this process, it will help you identify probably where there are problems in the value chain. List and profile of jobs providing direct and indirect support to customers. List of organizational and technical competencies required across the jobs and to what degree. So a competency framework will be required for this purpose. Report on competency gaps from assessing incumbents of listed jobs. Now, data to be gathered to attend to the questions from an external perspective are data on other options available to our target markets, data on price points, data on market share trends within the industry, and for those targeting same market audience, data on competition, go-to-market activities and initiatives, economic data on spending power with trends, spending trend data for market and target market. You will see that this is going to be a robust exercise whereby as the learning expert who is driving this analysis, you will need to work extensively with partners, stakeholders within the organization to get some of these data, so that at the end of the day, when you analyze your data, your findings, you would have descriptive reporting, which will show historicals in terms of some of the questions that are tilted towards historicals, prescriptive reports, which is more like these are my recommendations, and predictive, using data provide forecast based on execution of recommendation and non-execution. Now, this template has been made available for you to also review and see how you can tailor for the use of your organization. Now, this is a cost identifier. The next thing is definitely at the end of the day, probably problems have been identified. You now need to design a program. So in designing your program, for instance, let's say telesales officers, job summary. Job summary is to sell to potential or existing customer to inform them about a product or service while also providing support to existing customers where required. Now, what is success on the job? Closing more sales from new customers, closing more subscription renewal from existing customers. So you see that this role has got a lot to do with the retention of customers and the winning of new customers. So technical competencies probably identified in the course of your course identification is product knowledge. The proficiency level required for level 1 officer is an advanced level. Upskilling methodologies, for instance, is to design a course on products and train others. So for someone who is a level 1 officer, for this person to be able to be upskilled, this person should be able to design a course on products and train others, should be able to create a product with similar features to the company's products, generate mind map of a customer to identify questions relating to products and answer them, carry out product review and present. Why is this happening? Because it's been identified from your review, from your analysis, that product knowledge is very, very poor. Test of competence. Average score for assessment should be 90%. So these can go on, and feel free to tweak to suit your purpose. So this template will also be made available to you for possible adoption. So with this, you will see that you would have had a robust way of attending to this problem, because the request from the CEO is that we need to let go of these pools of staff and hire those who can do the job. But from your analysis, it is showing that it is really not about letting go of people. It is more about people not being trained about the product. So if you don't know about the product, you really can't do any magic with the product. So that is what you can get to achieve with analytics in learning and development. Okay, so before we go, let me reemphasize the availability of this template that was discussed in the course of this course, that you can easily access them as well for your own use. So thank you very much for taking this course, and I wish you the very best.